called here.
Formally, thank you for taking time out on a Tuesday night to come and learn some things from some pretty amazing people. For those of you who didn't see me as I walked in, I'm the...
And she did not have a glass of wine
before the wine.
I'm the husband of the chair breaker. So my name's Philip Brown, and I'm super proud to be in business with a team as fantastic as this, and to be able to have the opportunity to share some of their hard-learned nuggets of wisdom with you folks tonight. So it's going to be super informal kind of night. We're just going to chat. I'm going to ask a series of questions to our fantastic panel, and give them a chance to just sort of chat and give you some maybe some things that you can bring back to whatever business you're going to go back to, and implement them and see some cool things happening. And then after that, Q&A session. Anything you want to ask them about anything. They've all agreed to totally open themselves up to any and all questions, not just business, but it'll be fun. And then we'll have a chance to kind of hang out and have a glass of wine and some cheese, or soft drinks and cheese. They pair incredibly well together. So without further ado, panelists, you want to give this a little bit of thought. If you could each tell us a little bit about yourselves, how long you've been in business, how long you've been at Keller Williams, but most interestingly, what brought you to real estate? Why this crazy profession? So why don't we start with Katie, and we'll work our way across.
Okay. My name's Katie Young. I'm 37 years old, and I'm married with a dog and two little kids who are almost 4 and 10 months old. I got licensed in the summer of 2005.
She would probably tell you the exact date.
July 27th, I told you. We've been at Keller Williams since the fall of 2016, although I did want to come to the brokerage a few years earlier, but I would work with my dad, who was licensed in 1986, and that's how I got into the business. I always followed him around as a kid. His first office was actually right next door here.
Wow. Cool.
And I used to I had my own desk in the office. I'd take my Lego there. We'd go over, we'd run around to open houses and showings. So I grew up in the business with my dad, and I did my undergrad at Queen's, and then got a job I got one job first at this place downtown, which sucked, and I quit. So then I got a job at Starbucks, and my parents freaked out, and Dad said, "Get your real estate license, come work with me." And that was autumn 2004, and yeah, so I was licensed by the next summer.
Cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
Irene, you're right.
January 6, 1992. That was when I got licensed. So I'm at the. I only know because it just keeps coming up on our RICO license. So it is January 6th. And the last almost 11 with Keller Williams, the first 16 with one office, Home Life, which was great. I had a wonderful broker. She was very, very nurturing and very, very inspiring, and she really helped me get my business off the ground. And then a little over 11 years ago, Philip and I were introduced to Keller Williams because we were looking for a change. We had outgrown the company, and it just seemed to be a good fit.
Great. Thank you. Donna, tell us a little bit about you.
So I came from the corporate world. Post-university, I went into recruiting, so I had about 25 years of recruiting background. And one of the big companies took us over, and I was bought out, and it was kind of what I want to do when I grow up. And I'd always been, I think everyone in this room is kind of MLS junkies. And I bought and sold, 8 or 10 houses just through the process of my life. So I just thought, instead of selling people, I'll sell homes. That seemed too expensive.
Human trafficking.
Paid for it, out. So I started with Johnson & Daniel through a good friend of mine who was my agent actually at Mount Pleasant in Davisville in 2004. February, don't know the exact date.
She must have been thrilled you got your license.
I'm sure she was so bummed. I was like her best client. And I was there 14 years. And then about 18 months ago, again, very, fantastic, great friends and all of that, but it was a very, for me, a very corporate, a very limiting environment. And I wanted to kind of move beyond that. And I learned about Keller Williams, so I incubated at another Keller Williams office for about a year and a half, before coming here. And no regrets.
Cool, thank you. So one of the things we wanted to highlight tonight was the fact that each of the three of you have built this amazing business with incredibly loyal clients, and that's super hard to do. We often find ourselves kind of trying to chase the next client to the next client. All three of you have an incredible amount of repeat and referral in your database. So what I wanted to ask each of you is how important you think client retention is in your own personal real estate business, and why for you is that important?
It's the most important thing because that's my entire business. It's all repeat and referral. We have, since we came to this brokerage, Keller Williams, we're starting to go out on a limb and push ourselves out of our comfort zone and trying to get business elsewhere other than from people just referring to us. But for the past 13 years for me, that's all I've done. And I've done all right doing that. And I'd like to do better, which is why I'm going the other routes too. But without that base, we'd have no business.
Irene?
The question was how important is the loyalty?
How important is client retention to your personal business, and why is that important?
So for us, every year, anywhere between 60 and 70% of our business is repeat and referral, and we're very fortunate. We have a good-sized business. We're anywhere from 50 to 60 million every year, so that's a good chunk of change. It's critical because it takes the least amount of effort to get the referral. Of course, you have to work very hard to have happy clients and to make sure that they're pleased with what you've done for them, so they want to refer business to you. But then getting that business means you don't have to search for whole business. So it's kind of sort of the back end of that. You always want to be looking for new business to improve, but at the same time, the nurturing of the existing relationships will yield the best kinds of clients, because if somebody that you like and that has liked you sends you somebody else, they will tend to be like the people that you enjoyed working with. So it becomes a smoother transaction and it's a lot more fun.
Donna, how about you?
And I'm similar to Katie. I probably have 90% referral and repeat business. And I always looked at it, recruiting, coming from recruiting, there was always this stigma of, oh, you're a shark and you don't care about people. And getting into real estate was like, oh, you're a realtor. And you could just see their eyes roll. And a lot of clients always gave me the feedback that, all you guys care about is money and the deal and the transaction and not anything beyond that. So I made an absolute decision years ago that client retention was going to be my number one thing. And if you are sincere and if you really take care of them, that is your business, that's your base. I mean, yes, there's all other kinds of things you can do, but to me, just being available to them and being sincere was the most important thing, for sure.
So for you, it's more about building relationships than building business?
Yeah. Just not thinking about it from a money thing at all, yeah.
And it sounds like amongst the three, there's a sort of a deeper satisfaction that comes from working with people over and over again, people that you already know that you
have the trust level there, for sure.
Yeah.
And having said that, like new people, I was new too, so you think, oh, well, how do you start? And, initially when I started, all I did was open houses, and I asked every agent I could find, could I do their open houses? Could I share their listings? Could I do the show? Like, I did anything I could. So yes, it's easy for us to look back and say,
right,
but you have to remember where you started from. So that's a whole other thing, but you know, you do have to, when you get them, you just have to be, treat them like gold, and then you will get the referral. But so many people don't, they just drop them off, and then you never get them back again.
Yeah, so it's interesting that this is a topic for us tonight, because so many agents just don't stay in touch with their past clients, and it seems like, to be such common sense. You work with someone, and you stay in touch with them.
You want it to be a relationship, not transactional.
That's it.
Because a lot of people, I've had clients who were referred to me who worked with like the biggest name in our neighborhood, and they said they would never ever work with that person again because all they cared about was the transaction.
Just the deal.
Yeah.
Is that changing at all? Do you find that changing? Like people staying more in touch, or do you find that we're evolving as an industry and as agents? Or
I think some people are that understand it. I think there's just gonna be that great divide.
Yeah.
You know, and the more agents get into the business, how many new licenses do we have every month? 300 to 400?
388 licenses a month joining the Toronto Real Estate Board.
How many people are losing their license?
That's net, 388.
It's actually more people joining. The average new agent
So you
lasts about 2 years.
you have to make yourself special. Absolutely.
Well, the more people there are, the more value you have to bring to someone, and the more information there is available every month or every 6 months or every year. Clients are able to get more and more information on their own. So the onus is on you to prove your worth, and why would they work with you? You know, what are you going to bring to the table that's going to make a difference between you and the next person?
To answer your question in a different way, it's interesting looking at the numbers coming out of NAR. So NAR has been consistent.
What's NAR?
The National Association of Realtors in the
The
United
American-
States. So it's the Canadian or the American equivalent to CREA. But interestingly, their numbers have been consistent for the last 5 years. That 70% of transactional relationships, people have said they would have used the agent that they had first used, except that agent never kept in touch. So people are running around looking for business, and it's there. And yet, in the last 2 years, we've seen the development of tools that make it easier to stay in touch with clients than ever before. So it's interesting, really, it comes back to, are you intentional about it? So that's kind of neat. So that brings us to the activities, and that's the fun part of tonight. So you each have this really kind of neat suite of things you do to make people feel special, to really bring that level of client care that has people wanting to come back. So I'd love to hear from each of you, what are some of the activities that you do that you know have been appreciated by the clients and have helped build those relationships? Katie, what are some of the fun things you guys do?
Well, it's really basic and it's really easy, is whenever I see a house for sale in the neighborhood or on my client's street, I always send it to them and make a point of doing that. And you know, I've gone to neighborhood get-togethers, and like one person will say to their husband, "Oh, this is Kate. She's the one who sends me all the listings." Or it's stuff like that, and you're always kind of keeping top of mind. And I find with a lot of our clients, you like become close with them because you're dealing with such a big deal with them, especially the ones who are around the same age as me. I had a lot of people I sold houses to at my wedding. I had my 35th birthday party a couple of years ago and spent a lot of money on it. But I counted, I'd done like
Your
35
dad
to...
you spent money.
30, he had to buy all the beer. 30 to, but I bought all the alcohol. 30 to 35 deals from the people who were there, and there was 20 couples. So from referrals or actually selling those people their houses, like there was a lot of business there. So, and yeah, just invite them to your kids' birthday parties. And you guys do actual big events, which we need to start doing. But
I'll teach you.
But you guys you've really focused on sort of small, personal ways of getting that relationship built.
And it works, so don't stop.
Yeah.
They all become friends.
Yeah.
Right.
Cool. Irene, anything interesting that you do for client retention?
Yeah, well, it kind of starts with the education at the start of the transaction. So whether they're buyers or sellers, we really make a point of letting them know that we're going to take care of them. We want them to be happy, and we want to do such a great job that they will not want to ever use another realtor or refer another realtor. Actually, I stopped using the word refer. I started using the word introduce or connect because it's a bit more tangible. So we start with that, and then for both buyers and sellers, we have some pretty detailed checklists for when somebody goes to market. We have a pre-listing checklist and then a listing checklist to make sure that we cover everything from start to finish so that they have a lower level of stress. And then one of the things that we've really been focusing on with both us and the team is making sure that people understand what we're doing. Because I think a lot of us, you know, especially if we've been in the business for a while, we just kind of go through the business and we do stuff and we do a lot of stuff and then we just get the deal done. And the clients say, oh, that was easy. Whereas if we show them and we help them understand how much work goes in behind the scenes, they really learn to appreciate it. And then they're really happy, not just very happy. So once the deal is done, I mean, like Katie, we do stay in touch very regularly with our clients. I also send them listings or sales. You know, it's also nice for people to know what's sold in the neighborhood. We do a couple of big parties a year, but we've also focused on smaller one couple or two couple interactions so that you do build a more personal relationship that way as well. Because it's all about the relationships, for sure. Yeah, a lot of stuff on a regular basis. It's consistency.
And is it always about the money that you spend? Is it, because it sounds like you're taking them out for dinners and showering them with gifts and...
Sometimes we take them out for dinners and give them a nice gift, but it doesn't always have to be the money. It's about the time and the thought. Right? The sending, we send out cards a lot. So when they have a baby, we just send them a little card with a stuffed animal. It's like a $15 thing. And they love it because they get a blue one for a boy and they get a pink one for a girl. And it's the little things that
Sexist.
Did you want a pink bear, Philip?
I do.
You're setting yourself up now. You know.
Yellow, green, you know?
I think they've put some yellow ones in, yeah, so we do that as well. But yeah, it's not always about the money, it's about the thought. It's about the thought, and you know, if someone dies, you send a nice card, you send flowers, right? It's, you know, it's just being part of their life and thinking about them and making them feel important.
Cool. Donna, what are some of the things you do to create that experience?
So again, trying to not do what the norm does, you know, with, you know, the bottle of wine, and, you know, always try to do something different. And the first thing is sort of having a basket of kind of leveraging, you know, all of the things that you don't do as well. So things like, you know, having movers, and I have a concierge that does all these things for me and would do anything for them. Having contractors at the ready, like having, what do you call it? Like, yeah, experienced people who, you know, they need to do it. I do pop by seasonally, so I do, like I just did it in the fall. So these big moms arrive at their door with my card attached, and it's like, you know, fall into a great, you know, year, or I don't know, some little saying. And I'll have it delivered in front of them. That's huge in the neighborhood. And it's not that difficult to do. You can do 40 or 50 and, you know, have someone deliver them. So a lot of pop-by things like pumpkins, or at Christmas I do chocolate houses, especially if they just moved. And so that's always, and again, if they have kids, you can do a gingerbread, but a chocolate house is just so nice. And try to put something on it, and then I do the address that they've bought that year, and then get that delivered. So just, I always try to do something different. And then when they move into a neighborhood, I'll go and I'll get gift certificates for maybe 2 or 3 restaurants, and maybe they have a dog place, and just put a whole basket together. And I do a watercolor of the place that they came from, and I say from where you came to where you're going. And there's tears, like the guys cry. It's amazing. So it's like, and it depends. Like, it's not everything. If, you know, it was a divorce and they don't want a picture of their house, then you don't do that. So you have to kind of. But just, you know what? You just try to keep it personal, and you try to keep it real, and you try to think of what would you want. you know, you listen to them if they say, like the other day someone said, you know what, I don't have a fire grate, and I found this great fire grate at, you know, this Eve, you know, consignment store. I was like, oh, you heard me. You know, if you're listening, you're not just doing the pat thing and you're dropping it off. So just try to be unique and personal and genuine, I think.
Yeah, I think
That's the big
listening
difference.
is really a critical.
You said something else that was interesting, it was not doing the norm.
Right.
So it also sounds like you would have to know what other people that are in the industry around you are doing and then be able to.
It's like you get a toaster at your wedding, you know, you just want to do something different.
What you said about listening, though, I picked up a client, and he said, I would never use the person who I bought my house from again, because he said he calls me all the time, like on a regular basis, but you know, when I closed on my house, he gave me a bottle of scotch. And if he'd ever listened to me, he would have known that I would have just been happy with like a case of beer. Like, scotch is not me. And he said, I felt like he didn't know me at all. And this was a guy saying that.
Everybody.
Yeah, it's interesting. That's really good.
Excuse me, thinking about scotch. Any other sort of interesting anecdotal pieces that you can think of that telegraphed to you that the person found that what you were doing was meaningful to them? So even if it wasn't a gift, if it was just a way of doing things or the kind of care you took where it resonated and it's one of those stories you think of off the top of your heads.
Dad does like if there's a house that needs to be cleared out, Dad organizes like everything. He'll organize everything and he'll go and do it himself. I don't have the energy to do that, but he will.
Or I've had to like babysit, take their dog, like what, you pretty much, you just, again,
Yeah.
you're in touch with them,
Yeah.
so that makes
Store
a big
people's
difference.
bikes in my house.
My garage, yeah, filled.
Someone's
with
basketball net is in my house, in my backyard right now.
Clearing leaves from front and back lawns,
that's
shoveling
really
snow, landscape.
Cleaning windows.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, with a squeegee.
Oh,
Like one of those big.
I have one. So we had a listing in the spring in our farm, and they were wonderful clients. We had sold his mother's house the year prior, and when we take listings, we clean them, we do the windows, we stage, we do this, and this, and this. And Charlene said to me after we were, I think it was when we were doing the offer, her friend somewhere, Guelph, Cambridge, I don't know, somewhere. Oh, no, it was close to Quebec. Had her house on the market for like 4 months and nothing was happening. She never heard from her agent. So you had this, so Charlene said to her, oh, well, I'm sitting in this like nice clean house and my windows are done and I have offers and I'm selling. But she said it like that, it was pretty funny because she said, well, my agent does what your agent doesn't. Adam?
Okay, I met Philip once. You guys were selling a house on Warden Avenue. Speaking of things that you go above and beyond on. And the people had an intense sensitivity to all odors and aromas. So no perfumes, no deodorants, no nothing were allowed inside the house, and Philip met everybody at the front door and sniffed them before they could go in.
Those were
Yeah.
4th or 5th time past clients. When we bought their first
Wow.
house, their daughter they carried their daughter. And after everything was done, I'm choked up thinking about this, she said, you know what, Irene, you guys have always been great to us, you were great with us, you know, even, you know, before. And she said, but this time around, I have to tell you, what you did with this listing for me was just so above and beyond. Because this had been starting for a while, but it was progressive. It had never been as bad. And I actually saw a reaction that she had when she came into a room where there was like a laundry detergent open. And yeah, and that was, I mean, she just said like, that is just above and beyond.
Client for life. Refers you to everybody they possibly can.
So you've talked about a lot of services, a lot of things that you do. Do you always have to do this all yourself personally, or do you guys sometimes just show them the people that do it and kind of stick handle that side of things?
I'm bad. I take too much on myself. I'm A-type and I just want to do everything. So part of being with Keller is also learning to do what you do best and leverage and show other people. So that's why I got a concierge and I now refer to her. And I also started MoveSnap. And so far, my clients love it. So, and it wasn't that expensive, so that's something great. So that helps them, you know, the move. But I generally come from, like I'll lie in bed at 2 o'clock and I'll spend an hour getting out of bed and writing notes because I just think too much. So it's a fine line, I think, that you have to learn as realtors. You can't do it all.
We have experts for everything. Except when somebody messes up or somebody doesn't show up, which once in a while happens. I had to clean a shower once before a photographer got there because there was, you know, big hand smudges, and it was a big, beautiful bathroom. Yeah, I had, I think Bridget was with me. She took a picture of me in the shower with Windex. But yes, we like to hire people as professionals to do everything so that we can spend our time with clients, negotiating, selling, finding other clients. Okay.
Cool. So we've talked about a bunch of different things. Let's pretend that you had to pick one particular thing, one activity, one habit to create that kind of customer loyalty and had to forego all others. What is the one that you going forward would say, if I had to focus on only one, this would be it?
Always keep in touch, and you want to be the authority that they are, anything related to their home or real estate, you want to be the one that they contact. On the weekend, this girl sold them a house 2 years ago. She blew something electrical. She said there was smoke coming from and instead of calling an electrician, she called us. We directed her toward an electrician, but I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what to do. Like, can you or your dad help me?
That's great. And how do you, just hold on a second. So how do you think you projected that image? How did you become that resource for it?
Well, when they were first time buyers, they were referred from another client. They knew nothing. And the husband, actually, his dad had just died, so he didn't have like a father figure. Dad bought him a set of tools when they moved into the house, and whenever they had anything go wrong, because her dad isn't handy, they just called Dad. We had that other house too, where the guy you were like his handyman. The endocrinologist and the unemployed husband. You were like the handyman. He did everything. Yeah, you know, let's call him.
So be the go-to real estate resource.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
I think you had that experience with Rupesh and hot water tanks.
Yes.
Yes, Deepa and Rupesh also knew nothing.
Mm-hmm.
They told us they knew nothing. They were very upfront about everything. And they were very happy with their house. We'd stayed in touch, parties, whatever. But anything that went wrong in the house, Philip was the first call. And in fact, the last referral that he gave us was a gentleman from Abu Dhabi. And in his email intro, he said, Tarek, this is the group that I want to connect you with. They are completely trustworthy. I do everything through them, including talking about hot water tanks. Yeah, it was very cute.
Okay.
Very cute.
Yeah. So what is the one focal thing you would do above all else to create client retention?
I would start explaining our process and training them to think referral oriented right from the beginning. I think that would be my, it's maybe not as altruistic, but I would start with that right from the start of the transaction,
What do you do?
which is what we do now. So buyer consultation. I'm going to make you so happy. I'm going to treat you like gold. Our team will do absolutely everything for you, so you don't have anything to worry about. And when we're done, I want you to be so happy that you will not want to introduce your friends or family to any other realtor except for us. You start with that. And if by the time we're done the transaction, you haven't found somebody to connect me with, maybe I didn't do something right. Maybe we didn't do a good enough job for you. So I'd start with that. And then do everything else, and then go over the top, and then make them, like, you gotta deliver. You can't just promise, right? You can't just expect it without providing the level of service that's gonna wow them earlier, I think.
Wow them early?
Yeah, wow them early. Yeah, wow them early, I like that.
Cool. Donna?
And I'm probably a little different. It's more about, and it's not about the money or it being expensive, it's more about the touches, and the giving, or the, generosity, or it's the thoughtfulness. So just always finding something about them. I think that's my biggest thing. Again, whether it's their new dog, or whether they've just moved, or just, always listening and really sort of connecting and trying to touch like minimum 4 times a year.
Explain what you mean by touch.
Very good point. So like it could be an email, it could be, as you said, a house that sold down the street, but more personal thing. I do a lot on social media too, so it's always doing those private messages. Hey, I just saw that. Just constantly keeping, but a genuine, friendly touch system, which is.
I think the
emails or
point trying to
calls,
make a
connection.
touch is reaching out and having some kind of a communication with your client.
Yeah.
So that's,
But
in
just
the
doing
world we're in,
something
we refer
generous
to it
and
as a
thoughtful,
touch.
like it's just something different, always trying to do something different.
Well, and you've really focused, you said it earlier, on the pop bar.
Yeah,
So your touch system really is a lot of
right,
one-on-one,
Right now.
together, seeing each other.
yeah.
There's lots
Or
of
at
people who
least
do.
dropping it, like I have 2 sons, they're in their 20s, so I've used them. One put a, Christmas hat on one year, one put a, St. Patrick's, whatever, and they're like, oh my God, Scotty came by, so I dropped this. It doesn't have to be me, but just something personal.
Yeah,
It's worked for me really well.
Keep doing it. I have something to add. We use send out cards, as I mentioned, for birthdays. So we actually send them like real cards, and then I call them on my birthdays. And I usually get a chuckle, and I say like, what's up? Because they say, well, nobody calls on birthdays anymore, right?
Trish phones and sings happy birthday.
Yeah.
No way.
Every client, every
That's
day
great.
of the year, she phones a client and sings happy birthday.
That's great.
Wow. That's
You're the
good.
only one who sings to me.
Oh. They would not
So
want me to
cute.
sing.
Isn't that
to them.
cute?
That's very cute.
Yeah, that's cute.
Super cute.
Yeah.
Very effective.
That's
Yeah.
very cute.
And to remember it, which we'll get to.
Well, you don't remember it.
She's not remembering it, that's a system.
No.
Let's be real. That's a system.
It's gotta be a system. I can't
That's where we
remember.
get back in the checklist.
Yeah, let's try to remember the kids' birthdays, right?
That's
Our kids.
So you've built these businesses. There's still lots of really interesting things to do in the future, but you're at a point where you've experienced consistent success in however you defined it. So if you were now to be able to jump in a Wayback Machine and go talk to brand new agent you, what is the one thing you would tell yourself that might save you a whole lot of aggravation and time spent doing things that weren't productive or didn't help lead to the success? Katie, let's start with you.
Well, I come from, I walked into a business that was already pretty established, and I was really lucky to work with my dad, and I always did quite well without really doing anything for a really long time. And then I had a really bad year in 2012. And I was told to go to this course called Ignite at Keller Williams, and I didn't work at Keller Williams. It changed my whole business. I made 3 times as much money that year. I was getting married. I was super motivated. And when I was there, I kept saying to Dad, like, I want to go work at this company. I wish that I had been here from the very beginning, because my life would be completely different if I had been taught. Like, I had a great teacher and a great mentor and everything, but if I had, like, just the most basic things, and to always be consistent with following up and lead generating, and my life would be completely different if I had just gone to the very basics instead of, I'm so lucky and so fortunate to have walked into a business, but my life would be really different if I had started at a better company, basically.
Cool. I also like how you worked in that somehow Ignite might have been responsible for Robbie marrying you that year.
No,
Robbie's more
That's
excited.
how I'm gonna tell the
Yeah, he was
story.
so excited because I remember I said to one guy, we were in competition for a house, and I said, listen, Igor, that was the other agent's name, and I remember because it's an unusual name. I need to have oysters at my wedding, so you have to.
You have to
My clients need this house.
And did you get the oysters?
Yes,
Yay!
and we got the house.
And the wedding.
Yeah.
Irene,
Oh,
if you could
that's
go
great.
way back.
So way back. Yeah, it's a lifetime ago. I did have a pretty good mentor in my broker. I was very, very grateful for that. When I told her what should I do, she said go door knock, and it was, mid-January, so I did. So from that perspective, I think I was taken care of pretty well. But if I could, I think just being more consistent in everything. I would say picking one thing and getting good at it before expanding into others, and then consistency. So whatever it is, whether it's past clients or farming or door knocking or anything else, I would say being consistent instead of jumping all over the place, which is very common for us as realtors. I think it's in our DNA. Just go on to something else before you get focused. And Gary Keller says the one thing. So who's read the one thing? Excellent. All right, Alessandra, that's next on the reading list. Yeah, focus and consistency.
Donna, what would you go back and tell Donna to do?
Hands down, treating real estate as a business. I don't know why I never thought of that as much as I have now. And, certainly being consistent as well, but treating it like a business, treating it like there's an accounting arm and there's, a systems arm and there's accountability and all of that. I don't know, I never thought of it like that. I didn't really think it was my own thing. So I think that's important. And then the secondary thing would be really surrounding yourself with, you mentioned a mentor, but as many like-minded people and sharing just as much as you give back. It's such a lonely business, and we're out there and we sit at home a lot, coming into the office, any office, calling up people. It's so important because you think you can handle it on your own and you can't. Just hearing all the stories from other people, good, bad, and indifferent, makes you feel like you're part of a bigger thing.
Cool.
Those two.
Cool. Anything else you'd like to add before we open it up to the floor for a Q&A? Any sort of little last nuggets about,
how long do we have? Could be here for 3 hours.
So creating that client loyalty. What else would you, or have we covered?
Dad had one guy died, and Dad had known. He wrote about it in our newsletter. Dad had known him. He pumped his gas for him, for my dad, when 50 years ago. And when he died, he'd said, "David Young's going to sell my house." There's been a few old people like that.
That's loyalty.
Yeah.
That is
Wrote it as well.
Yeah, and that comes from really feeling like there's a real genuine connection, and it's not just business. That's great.
I don't think you can get enough education. You always get something out of something. So don't ever feel like you know it all, because I don't think anyone does, but whether it's a deal or whether it's just the industry, there's always something you can learn. So taking courses, whether
Doesn't matter how long you've been around, right, Dave?
Oh, for sure.
You and me, dinosaurs.
Volunteer. As the volunteer at your organization. I volunteer, Philip volunteers, we're big volunteers at Treb, and it's fantastic. You learn so much and you meet a lot of people too, which is great.
Great. So I'll open it up to the floor. Are there any questions you would like to ask either Donna, Katie, or Irene about anything to do with building client loyalty or repeated referral business?
Anything else?
Or anything else?
Yeah.
Okay,
covered everything.
so I'll address the elephant in the room. Somebody probably wants to know how awesome it is to be married to me. So, no? Okay.
Irene, just give him the pink bunny.
The
Or
pink
whatever
bunny.
it is.
Yellow, it has to be yellow.
Yeah, yellow,
There.
yellow.
Oh, sorry, sorry.
Yellow like rainbow. Rainbow. covers it
Rainbow,
all.
rainbow's good, rainbow's good.
That says a whole lot.
Seriously, any questions about anything?
Well, what would you do if you were a new agent, knowing what you know now, and you had a business to start from scratch?
Meet as many people as possible.
I go to Bold.
What is bold?
BOLD is a training program created by Keller Williams. It's an acronym for Building Objectives of Life by Design.
Business objective.
Yeah.
What did I say? What did I say?
You said
Building, I'm sorry. Yeah, building a
You
business.
were thinking back about the teddy bear.
No, I was thinking of building a business. Well, Donna, please, can you show your notebook?
Mastery by design, no. what is
Yes.
it?
No.
But
It's
education.
a 7-week training program that jumpstarts everything for you, whether you're brand new or experienced and need a boost. It's, yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
Leslie, every week
very inspirational.
went to the front of the class and got a pin because she would call 100 people a day.
That's because I wrote a check for $1,000 to Ford's campaign,
Yeah.
and I gave the check to Trish. And said, if I don't do it, you get to send this.
That was accountability.
Yeah.
Oh, that is so cool.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, I happily ripped that check.
Good for you. I would say I mean, it's a pretty intense program, but as intense as it is, it really puts you into the mindset, and you can attest to that, for lead generating, because this business is all about lead generating. If you're just starting, you
Gets
don't
you over
have
your
past, what's that?
Gets you over your
Yeah.
fear.
And if you're just starting, you don't have past clients to count on.
Right.
You need people to start working with to build the loyalty and to get the referrals from.
Katie, you mentioned Ignite Change Your Life. Can you tell us a little bit, what is Ignite?
Ignite is a training course. It's pretty much the basics of real estate. And there's an accountability part to it as well. And I don't know what it was about it that just really clicked with me. Every day there's a different teacher and you just can sit there and you learn so much. I really liked it, and it was the best course I've ever taken. I loved it.
Yeah, Ignite is a 12-session program, and it's usually either Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Tuesday, Thursday, depends on the office that runs it. And in between the training sessions, you have mission days, which is where you go and you call, or you door knock, or you do whatever.
Practice the skills you
Try to
learned
build
in the
your
session
client base.
before.
Yeah, so BOLD is once a day for 7 weeks. Ignite is 2 to 3 times a week for 4 weeks, so it's a slightly different.
Isn't Bold,
But
or
less.
sorry, Ignite kind of the precursor to
Yeah.
Bold?
Yeah, a lesser.
Yeah, it
Doesn't
can be.
have to be.
No, but
Doesn't
it's,
have to, but it's kind of bold light.
yeah, it was,
Right,
it was written in a way where you could be either a brand new agent, or you could be somebody who had been out of the field for a little while and hadn't, to Donna's point, built your real estate practice as a business. So this really walks you through the basics of building the business, all the way from your initial marketing and branding to your presentations for buyers and sellers, then getting into objection handling, doing the lead generating, all of the things that you really need to do to kind of build that great foundation for a business. Bold, we find, as you go through, and it's not just Keller Williams agents that go to it, it's people from all over. But the ones that have seen success at a super high level have also taken it 4 or 5 times. We've got people in the area that have taken it 10, 15. Because again, for them, it's like training for anything. And if you don't, we actually have an interesting kind of corollary to this now. So if anybody knows an agent named Austin Keitner, he's a KW agent, but he works primarily in Etobicoke. And he just posted today, nobody'd seen him in a few days, it's because he's in the hospital. because he decided he was gonna run his first half marathon. And he had never run one before. And he got to a point in his training where he was up to about 10K a day, and then went and did this one, and at about the 15K mark, started to feel exhausted and whatever else, and he thought that was a personal challenge that he was just gonna blow through. And he woke up in the hospital,
Oh my God.
and he was completely dehydrated, and realized, and his great sort of aha was, you have to earn the right to perform at that level, and you've got to take it step by step. So it's interesting, and he's a great agent, does lots of things, but realized that he kind of overstepped his abilities and didn't do the training. So like in anything in business, if we want to be hitting our maximum performance, we really have to train constantly. And never assume that because I worked out 20 years ago, I don't have to now. So that's, clearly. That's what it's my struggle. Yes?
I have a question. How do you handle objections with any client or transaction? Can you tell a story of how you had to overcome rejection? Someone even trying to sign up and they
I had a client in the spring, Philip really helped me. They thought that they'd got a better deal going, they weren't a client yet. I'd shown them a few houses, then there was one that they were really interested in. And the wife said, the husband thinks you get a way better deal going directly to the listing agent. I thought, I don't know what to say about that. So I asked Philip, and he made some really good points, which I told this person, it always works out better for the seller. And you want somebody to represent you who's working right for you. As it turns out, also, the listing agent on this property loves me. So I was able to get them, she said, those are really good points, let me talk to him. They decided that they wanted to work with me. I was able to get them the house for less money. And then I sold their house, and then a neighbor of theirs, it was on my street, a neighbor of theirs had a bad call with her real estate agent, then ran into the old neighbor, and then I listed their house and sold it, and then got another listing on the back end of that too. So it was just from Philip's objection handling, proving your worth and what we bring to the table.
Yeah, I think. Would you agree that just learning how to objection handle and going through the scripts and practicing with people?
It really is, because objection handling, there's objections for everything. Right.
Yeah.
So it's learning the scripts and internalizing them so that you know what to say when whatever objection comes up, because there's so many of them. Just to pull one, I thought of it when Katie was talking, proving your worth. Over the last 12 months, we had 14 months, we had 2 different buyer consultations where at the end, they said, oh, and how about rebating us back money?
Classic.
Right? Well, wouldn't have expected it, because we go through pre-qualifying questions with a seller, and we sort of kind of press them for commission objections potentially, but you don't do that with the buyer.
Yeah.
And one of them, there was just them getting past not getting half of our commission back.
Wow.
Like, it was no, I'm only going to work with somebody who rebates that to me. And I thought, I should spend an hour on a buyer consultation for nothing. Really? So no, we didn't work with them, and
I thought that you were determined then to
right.
No,
change their mind.
As far
Yeah,
as
but
showing
you don't wanna
me
walk
yours,
away from
this,
that.
I don't
Right.
work with that, that's right.
So there was another case a few months back where we had been working with a couple for a while, and then they put their search on hold. They thought they might be leaving the country, and then we didn't hear from them for a while, and all of a sudden they surfaced, and they said, okay, now we're ready to buy. And we went through, because it was a slightly different list of criteria, so we went through that. And then and he said, to be honest, we had been working with my cousin a little bit, And, you know, he didn't really know what he was doing, so we threw in some lowball offers and it didn't work out, but like, you know, we know that you're gonna take care of us. And then the wife brought it up, and she said, well, what about a rebate? And I said, what rebate? Why would we give you back the money that we worked for? And she said, you know, I don't want a lot, like only like, you know, 3/4 or 1% or something. And I said, so you want me to do all the work and only get half of the paycheck? And it was it was a much longer explanation than that, talking about, you know, making sure that we get you a better deal, making sure that we protect you, making sure that you don't buy the house that's not going to be right for you just for the sake of having a deal. And I said to her, is this going to be a deal breaker? And the husband's doing his best not to roll his eyes. And she said, I don't know, let me think about it. So I went back, I said, okay, here's the paperwork, I'm going home. Like 9 o'clock at night, I'm going home. You guys make a decision. And then I came back home, I put a really nice email together outlining what we said and what the benefits are of working with somebody who's actually looking after you as opposed to getting a kickback. Like, what's the point of getting a kickback if you don't get the right house? Or if you don't get the house at all, right? If you don't get the house,
It's only the hardest market to buy a house in the history of,
right?
in the history of time.
Right.
So I sent them all of that.
That's so true.
Yeah.
An hour later, I had my buyer rep signed and they emailed. Yeah. But you know, there's two very different cases. Like those people understood, and I was able to help them see the sense in it. The other people couldn't see past the rebate. But you know, again, why would we put all that work in? It's so hard to work with buyers right now, and then give up our paycheck.
Well, one of the things if you take the certified negotiation expert course, it's three courses, it's really good. And she says, you know, when people ask you questions like that, you just say, no. What's your next question?
That works for some people.
It does work for some people.
What you'll find
Yeah.
in,
Expert at it.
so in programs like Ignite, Bold, we run objection handling
That's
workshops here,
education is
where we
always-
just get everybody together and people just throw out scenarios. And we walk through the sort of the structure of listening to the objection, being able to sort of separate what's really the issue here, and being able to kind of drill down a little bit. Why is that important to you? Is that really how you're going to make your decision? Why is that important to you? And then eventually you'll sort of get down to what really the issue can be. And even if you've never come across that specific example, if you've learned how to structure a response, you'll be able to take that time while you're listening to then say, okay, I know where to take this and move it into something that's a much more positive reflection. But a big part of that is understanding and really believing in the value that you bring to the transaction. And that does, honestly, that takes a little while. But when you are going to different educational opportunities and you're around agents a lot that again are sharing their stories, you do pick up a lot of that.
That's the thing, hearing from other agents, like, you know, we talk daily. Well, what happened? How did you do? As a new agent, how are you gonna get clients? And, you know, sometimes it's just about your relationship with them. You can say you're brand new, it doesn't matter, but how many times have we beat out, you know, experienced 25-year agents because you're real or you're genuine or, you know, you just show them value of what you're doing. Sometimes that's all it takes. You don't have to do much more than that. If they can, you don't actually want to work with people necessarily too that
don't.
Why would you put yourself through that?
right? So
You're like beating your head
I know when
against
you're
the
new, you
wall,
want
right?
everything and you just want to deal and you know you want to get business, but you know you appeal to people that
Have your own integrity.
Yeah. And realizing that there's as much business out there as anybody can manage, as long as they're looking for it. So as long as you're always looking, business will happen. Cool. Any other questions?
I have a question about BRA. Do you guys typically have your clients sign that before you start working with them, or do you typically leave it right until they're ready to put an offer in? And which do you think works
Honestly?
better?
You
I'm
have
sure
to-
it's
you have
fluid.
You have to introduce it at the earliest practicable opportunity.
Oh, boy, that's a real.
I know.
Yeah,
Until she volunteers.
Okay, I'll tell you.
Yes.
We talk
What's the
about
real
it.
answer, though?
We talk about it at the very.
At the buyer
At the buyer consultation.
Yeah.
Some people, depending on the relationship, will sign it right away. If it's a very, very new relationship, I'll say, okay, so you don't have to sign this tonight. Take it home, read it, here's the plain language forms,
Yep.
make sure you understand it, let us know if you have any questions, let's test drive each other. Second or third time out, we get it signed.
I find most ask for it.
Oh, I don't.
Yeah, that's true too.
I don't.
And so.
And
what
I'm
we're looking
learning
at-
that, I'm learning, I used to wait till offer.
Okay.
You're not
And,
supposed
you
to
know,
do that when
touch
they don't know
wood.
what they're talking about.
I've talked to them about it, but I've never done it.
It makes it easier if you do it ahead of time. 'cause
It
it's
is,
less
it's just a bit
paperwork on it.
overwhelming, but
So-
it's because I didn't know the language and the objections around it, and now that I'm much more comfortable, and the plain language forms always get them with any of the new real estate
It's
forms.
also really important to get their buy-in and commitment pretty soon.
That's
Yeah.
it, because you don't want to waste your
And
time.
then you know where you're putting your time and energy, right?
That's it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
you're-
if they don't, but like, if a second or third time out, you guys have a feeling of whether or not you wanna work
Right.
together. So if they don't wanna sign it at that point, that's a whole other discussion.
Sure.
What is it that makes you uncomfortable?
Yeah.
Why is it that you don't wanna commit, however.
That's a good
You
question.
you
What is
certainly,
it that makes
you wanna protect your time, but you also, in the truest sense of the word, you really wanna protect the client. And in my capacity at TREB, on the professionals, or the arbitration, as an arbitration chair, the number of cases I hear that stems solely because nobody really explained it to the client, to a point where the client understood that if I sign 2 of these, I can be sued and I can owe both commissions. Nobody ever comes in and says, I understood that clearly. So really, that's such a big part of why.
It's a really good piece to add.
It is.
Explaining that form.
yeah.
Well, and as we go into shifting markets, you know, when we're in what I would call sort of a time of scarcity from a buyer's perspective, buyers are looking for every edge they can get. And it's not that they mean to maliciously kind of cut you out of a deal. And it's not that they're always being pulled by some horrible listing agent in an open house. But there are times where there's an opportunity and they think, well, I haven't really committed to this other person. And if I can save $10,000,
If they believe.
I'm just
that
gonna go
they're
do
saving
this.
savings.
So if you're not having a buyer consultation at the beginning of the process and explaining all this to them, it makes it much easier for you to be on the end of a deal where you don't get paid because somebody else got the paperwork signed before you did.
Wasn't there also an insurance issue, like when you're bringing them into the house, you're
Yeah.
covered, like with,
Yeah, well, in a technical way, if they're not a client of the brokerage, your E&O insurance doesn't cover them.
Yeah,
So
you
big,
shouldn't be
wow.
sharing sold information and comp, like, we give them so much
Well, that's what I'm trying to
information.
get, like, do you put that effort in before you have them sign?
I do, but I'm
Some,
shortening
some.
my
Sometimes
cycle.
you want-
Some, you need
yeah.
to
Depends
show,
on the relationship.
yeah, I mean, you need to show them that you're
Yeah.
learning something about
Some
it.
people,
Of course.
it's a 3-page scary document to some people, and as
Yeah.
much as you try to speak legally, you
but
know,
it's interesting.
I tend to say, you know, I wanna represent you, you wanna be a client, otherwise everyone's representing the seller in this, so.
Yeah. And can I ask one more question about that? How do you deal with the objection of, I don't want to sign?
You can sign it for just this one house, that we're gonna go take a look at.
Yeah.
Well, no, I think you were, what you were saying, is
Well,
what is your why?
Like, I have somebody that does not just, like, and I'm like, well, you have to sign it if you're gonna put an offer in.
Right.
But they're
We have
just
one like
like,
that.
not, she's like, no, I don't. Like, she's adamant about it. And I'm
Well,
like,
you need
okay.
at the brokerage.
There's some people like that.
Well, but is that somebody that you know for sure that you want to keep working with?
Well,
So
Yeah.
you're not
questionable. I'm not, like, it's
Okay.
someone I know that this is the scenario that's going on.
So,
Depends on, like,
And she's bought many houses before, like bought and sold many houses, and has always said that she's never signed. And I'm like, how does that happen? I don't
She would've
understand
had
how that
to-
would.
she would've had to sign.
Yeah, she
Well,
signed
depends
it
how
right
long
at the,
ago.
on offer date.
You know,
So
like,
you make
my
that
house 12 years
decision, do
ago,
you wanna
didn't sign
keep
the
all
BRA.
that time?
Right.
Yeah, honestly, again, I think it's like any objection, I think you start with questions.
Sure.
You know, why, so what is
Tell me
it,
about that.
what is it that scares you about this? What are you worried about happening? Are you worried about this tying your hands? Are you worried about not being able to see things that maybe other people have already started showing you? And if that's the case, that's okay. You just need to understand that for me, it's important that we work exclusively with each other. If you're not prepared to commit to that, I totally understand that.
Yeah.
But that would go both ways.
Right.
So if you go and see some things, if I've got time, maybe, we could do this as a customer service agreement, which would allow you to do things with other people. But for my time and my energy, I really only want to be working with clients that want to work together as partners.
I will bend over backwards for my clients.
Sure.
And I expect that they have that same level of commitment to me that they do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or to Katie's point, a short, just say, you know what, why don't we just sign it for a month? Why don't we just sign it for just C10? Why don't we just sign it for one house? That kind of thing. And then they get more comfortable with you. It's not I tend to find that works for me.
I think it really depends on the person.
Yeah,
If
sometimes
you-
once
in a while.
I've never done it. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes they don't, and then you're just like, you take your chances. It could still work.
But it's actually, it came up here as a question that Katie asked last week. So the question, to the broker of record was, can somebody just buy a house? And the answer is, yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
They can
yeah.
buy without actually
Oh, yes.
signing?
Oh, yeah, two people.
So maybe this is what she does.
Yeah, she can
Well,
go
she
in,
would
she can say, I'm buying.
Anybody
I
can sell their own house.
I will bring this to my lawyer. I'll look up, but I don't want any relationship at all. And in that case, if you still want to be helping them,
Yeah.
then you have to say to them, well, from a brokerage point of view, I have to put our relationship on paper. So we'll write up, here's a buyer agency, and you write, refuse to sign. And then we're good. And I can now choose whether I want to help you out or not. But somebody could walk into an open house and talk to a listing agent, and they could put an offer in on their home that afternoon.
Because that never happened.
No, young people are trying to do it. It was all young people who we had this.
And lawyers, they were lawyers.
Yeah, in Summerhill. And
You
one
might
was a
represent
lawyer
themselves.
and one guy worked at a hedge fund and he said, I can represent myself. And he wanted me to send him all the paperwork and Philip said, no.
If you want me to work for you, that's one. If you want to represent
Yeah,
yourself.
it was the weird, he didn't show up on offer night, but he said he was at the bank getting a draft. He wanted to know how much it would be for, and I said, we have no idea who you are. I have to protect my seller, so if you want to buy this house, you need to bring a bank draft of 10 to 20% of the purchase price.
That's why he didn't show up.
No, he didn't show up.
I'm just even.
But objections, I'm
Flabbergasted.
reading all the time too, I thought. Like,
Well,
people would
buyers
take-
think that they can get a better deal from the listing agent. That's the problem.
So it's just learning as we go on.
Yeah, and there's a change in the industry too, though, and it's that I can drive down Bloor Street and I can see a bus fly by me that says, I will rebate you 1%.
Right.
So now it's not that somebody's doing something wrong, it's that the consumer's becoming aware that it is a possibility, and there's nothing wrong with them asking. In the same way that when we had discount brokerages first come up, there was nothing wrong with somebody saying, would you do this for $1,000? Would you list my house for 1%? There's nothing wrong with that, we just have to learn how to establish our own value.
And the more you lead generate, the more people you have to talk to, the more you can pick and choose between the people who want a discount and the people who will appreciate your services.
But it
Keep
takes-
role playing.
like
you
that
know,
Barry
going through
Lebo
your head,
course we
objection
took.
stuff.
Yeah.
Like, it
It's
costs
so important when you first.
thousands of dollars just to get a listing. In our time, not to mention the
No,
photography,
no, we're just
the
playing
floor
it, so it just
plans,
becomes natural,
all that
as
stuff.
natural as it
Like, it
can. You
costs
haven't done
thousands,
it,
so you wanna make sure that you're being
You get
compensated.
nervous, but it's good.
Any other questions? Is everybody ready for wine and cheese, or beverage and
Wine and
cheese, or no
cheese,
beverage,
right.
just cheese?
Or
Which would be
Halloween
super,
candy
super
and
dry and
cheese.
sticky. There are some Reese's peanut butter cups out there,
Are
so.
they all gone?
It is
They're
supposed
all
to
gone.
Hide them?
I did not.
I'm not sure that's
They're all gone, I think. You-
No, I
Okay,
think.
thanks guys, let's go.
Awesome, so let's do that. Thank you all very much.